The topic for today, or this session, this power session, is why do we need worship leaders? And I tried my hardest to find like a cool, smart thing to say. It's like, we don't need them. Kind of like shock you guys. But really, like, if you look at that scripture, Matthew 20, verse 18, or 18, verse 20, I'm forgetting, where two or more are gathered, there I am in the midst of them. So let's just start with that. Two or more. If any two people get into a room and say, let's worship, I mean, immediately the first question is, well, what song? Where do we start? What key? What tempo? And for two people to even agree on that, one person needs to well, let's just start something, and then they join. The other person joins. Whoever starts is the worship leader, right? Now, the leading might not stay with that person. It might flip back to the other person. Okay, now it's your turn. Now you start a song. You ever been around a campfire? And it might not be worship stuff, but it might be like we're just singing songs, and there's a guy with a guitar, and then he sings this song, and then there's this dead space, and then someone else starts a song on the other side of the campfire, and then everyone joins in and carries on, and it's just this community kind of feel, right? And it's just we're just singing together. But every now and then someone takes lead, because for any group of people to do anything in a cohesive manner, there needs to be a sense of organization. And so at a very practical level, we need worship leaders. Giving the whole thing away here. Yes, we do. Just because we want to organize a room. In a room like this, filled with people who have come with hearts of worship, hearts that love him, there needs to be some semblance of organization. So there's your answer. Guess I'm done, eh? All right, well, it's been good. But that's not the problem. Right, so we have leaders, and how many people are worship leaders here actually? Or on a worship team, right? So thank you very much for your service and everything that you're doing, but it's not do we need worship leaders? It's what kind of worship leaders do we need? And that's going to be formed by your stories, by where you're coming from. For instance, so my initial, I loved music. I grew up in Zimbabwe, as you said. Grew up in Zimbabwe. I loved music. I didn't care what kind of music it was. I just wanted to do it. Actually, I would tell people, I want to win a Grammy Award. Wow. She was like, oh, go for it. No. Yeah, right. And this was in Zimbabwe where I'd say it. And one day the Lord, I was lying on my couch or whatever, and this voice just said, give up the Grammy. And I was like, now this was my North Star. Like this, I wanted to do this for a whole bunch of foolish reasons, probably, but this was what my purpose in life was. Some people wanted to be doctors and dentists. I wanted to sing and win a Grammy. And the Lord's like, give it up. And I'm like, well, what will I do then? He's like, I didn't ask you that. Give it up. Now, you know when people say like they go cold turkey off drugs or whatever, and they're just like, one minute they were like on drugs, and the next minute they're not, and it's just miraculous that way. That was me with this Grammy. I gave it up, and with such grace and such ease that when I say it doesn't correlate to how intense the dream was. One moment I really wanted it, the next moment I didn't. And so, thank you, Lord, for that. But I was like, okay, what now? And he's like, here's Christian music. And I was like, what's that? Because we didn't have all the industry stuff, Christian music industry and all that. So I was like, okay. So I got to go figure out what Christian music is. So I went, got some friends gave me some magazines, CCM magazines. Okay, I'm dating myself here, but this is like back in the mid-90s. And I'm reading these magazines, and I'm like, oh, They have like record labels. They have this place called Nashville, and there's all these people doing cool things. Wow. And they have a thing called a Dove Award. God doesn't want me to win a Grammy. He wants me to win a Dove Award. I could just see the father going like, another 20 years around that mountain. And that was, I came over to Canada for university, and with this big passion and dream, and honestly, like I got to do a lot of cool things. I actually held a Grammy once. I went to a friend's house, and he's like, hey, he was a friend of an opera singer back in Toronto, and the opera singer went to his church or whatever, and this opera singer had won a Grammy. He worked with the Pavarottis and all those people. Like, I was like, oh. And so I'm in this living room once, and everyone had left. I go to this living room, and there on the mantle was a Grammy, a real golden Grammy. And I was like looking around, and I grabbed it, and I was like, whoa. I don't know if it was heavier or lighter than I thought, but I was like, whoa, this was it? This was, my life was going to be spent in pursuit of this. And I put it back on the mantle, and I was like, oh. So thankful, not that I missed that or anything like that the Lord even allowed me to hold one. And then recognize I could walk away without any regret or any kind of, oh, but what if? None of that. Anyways, that summer, the first summer I landed in Canada, or rather winter rather, I went up to Montreal, so it's another city, a few hours away from where I lived. Went to this bookstore, and in the bookstore, I'm looking around with some friends or whatever, and I see this book standing. There's a million books, and I see this book just highlighted. And again, I just love music. I don't care what it is. I just want to sing. I want to wear, I want to be something. Identity issues, whatever. Thank you very much. Thank you. And it's a book called The Heart of Worship by this guy. I'm looking at the spine, Lamar Bosch. Take it out, Lamar Bosch, man. Okay, cool. Read the back. I open it up. I don't know what happened, but I never heard of him before or anything like that. So it wasn't oh my gosh, famous author. And I don't know why this book was highlighted to me. But it seemed like every word in that book, like when I started reading the beginning or whatever, and everything was just jumping out at me. And it wasn't so much like, oh my gosh, I've never heard this before, or oh my gosh, this was new revelation. It was better than that. It was confirming, putting language to stuff that was in my heart that I didn't even know was there. It crystallized it. It was like, oh, what? Like, yes. Everything was just a yes. Oh my gosh, it just gave structure to something that was already going on in me that I didn't even know was there. I wouldn't have recognized. And so I go back to my hometown in Canada. Like, it's getting confusing, Zimbabwe, Canada, whatever. But I go back to my home church, and I walk into the church, and I'm like, I had been on the worship team already at this church. And I go up to the lady who ran the worship department, and she's like, I want to lead worship. And she's like looking at me, and she starts tearing up. And I'm like, whoa, is that bad? And she's like, I've been praying that for you, but I wanted you to see it. I wanted you to want it. I wanted you to feel the call. So I'm like, sure, okay, cool. When can I start? And that became my journey. Now, I had been leading worship before. But to me, it was like, oh, yeah, we sing songs at church. And now it became a mission. And now it was defined. And now there was a heart of worship that was inserted, or that was crystallized. It's the best way I can. So another milestone in the journey of leading worship was, so we're in Toronto, and Toronto Airport was a major revival center for years. Like, incredible. And I went there one time, and Graham Kendrick, ring any bells to the OGs in here? Graham Kendrick, shine, Jesus, shine. No? Wow. Dude, that was the original shout to the Lord, you know. Knowing you. Anyways, so he was coming. I was like, oh, cool. I want to go see it. It's a packed room. Again, like a heavy, amazing revival center. And I am at the front, in the overflow, front of the overflow, and he's leading, and he's singing all these songs from a new album. And I was like, I don't know any of these things, but I just chose to sort of dive in. And I went to this place. I can't explain it. I'm not trying to be super spiritual here. But because I didn't know the songs, I just started singing my own songs to the Lord. And it was like the Lord was right there. It was like I was literally in heaven or something. And just this amazing, well, to me, it was actually quite normal in the moment. It was like, whoa, this is so cool. And the songs were just flowing. And I wasn't trying to record them or anything like that. It was just this release. And it was all over, and I go back to my seat, and I'm kind of like disappointed because I'm like, whoa, like we came all the way here. That was like 15 minutes, like, of worship. Like, what the heck's going on? And I was telling, the guy I was sitting with, and he's like, what are you talking about? That was an hour and a half. And I just was like, what? No, that was 15 minutes. Like, that was my experience. He's like, no, dude, we've been here an hour and a half. And I don't remember one song that Graham Kendrick sang. I don't remember any of the songs I sung. All I knew is that I had an encounter. And that ruined me for anything less. We're going to go back to just singing songs when there's this. But I don't know what this is. I don't know how to go there or get there. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And everyone's been saying fantastic stuff. Like, I'm sitting there like, But we're all nodding in agreement. Everyone was like, oh, yeah, you want the presence of the Lord? Yeah. I'm preaching to the choir here, and you're all agreeing. But if that's true, if we do want his presence, if we do want encounter, why are we not experiencing it? Right? Now, there's levels of encounter. There's levels of his presence, his manifest presence, right? I liken it to oxygen. Right now, we're sitting, breathing in oxygen. You're unaware sometimes. You forget. You'll remember real quick if all of a sudden there wasn't anything here. But when you're in the middle of a hurricane, it's the exact same molecules. They're just moving at a faster pace. You're aware of the effects of it. So his presence is here right now. So the second part of that verse, wherever two or more are gathered, there I am in the midst of them. There I am in the midst of them. His promised presence. He's here. Right now, he's here. The same God who raised Christ from the dead is here. The same power that did it is here. The same power that was that in that cloud that Tom Davis was talking about, and the quadriplegic woman gets healed, is here right now. No. We're agreeing, but we're not. We're like, okay, what do we do about that? So there's three ingredients. Speakers say these things like, it's like the truth or whatever. It's an opinion. But as far as I can tell, there's three ingredients to corporate worship: people, praise, presence. The people of God singing the praises of God in the presence of God. And this is very general, broad buckets here. Now, we are really, really good at the first two. We're good at leading people. We're good at leading our teams, discipling. You can buy books about it. You can go to school for it. You become a worship pastor, MDiv in worship. And you know how to lead people and help them. And we're good at that. You can buy tapes. You can go to get classes. I know. It just came out. Online courses, sorry. podcasts, right? We're really good at the people side. If you don't know how to do it, the answer is out there, right? You get mentors. It's not hard to get good at the people thing. It's important. I'm not diminishing it. I'm just saying the resources are there. Praise. There is more money on this stage to help us praise than 90% of churches have for their whole building in the world. We know how to do praise. And by praise, I don't mean the theological praise. I just mean the act of presenting music, the helping people sing, the technology that goes with that, the music that goes with that, the stuff that makes the sound. And with sound, we can also talk about production and lights and the whole nine. So we're good at leading people. We're good at creating praise. Not so good on the present side. Like, where do you go to learn how to attract a cloud? In breakout session number 2. From karaoke to encounter. But honestly, like, where'd you go? And it's easy because what we do, we just put in a it's like, oh, that's a charismatic thing. Well, that's not for everybody. I don't know. His presence. You know, we look at, if you remember Moses' tabernacle, there was the outer court, the inner court, holy place, holy of holies. There's brazen altar. There's tons of stuff, right? There's a whole process. There's beautiful, beautiful curtains. Everything is nice, right? It's the centerpiece of their community. People are coming and bringing their goats and bringing their cows and bringing their offerings. And the priests are there day and night, accepting, sacrificing the animals, offering to the Lord. And that's awesome. Except in this one particular time, the Philistines had stolen the ark, which is supposed to sit in the Holy of Holies, had stolen it. King David went and got it back. But on his way back, he decided, you know what? I'm not going back to Moses' tabernacle. I'm going to pitch a tent a couple of miles away, pitch a tent, and we're going to put the ark in the center, and we're going to gather singers and musicians and put them around the ark. And we're like, oh, that's awesome. I like that. But at Moses' tent, Moses' tabernacle, people were still offering sheep, goats. Priests were still doing their service, and there was nothing behind the curtain. And how often do we do that? Like, we do the pageantry, we do the process, we have the workflows. We spend 90% of our time figuring out what songs to sing, how to sing them well, how to play them. All important, people in praise. But it almost doesn't matter because there's nothing behind the curtain sometimes. And the people wouldn't even know. In fact, the production is so good, the production has to be so good because there's nothing behind the curtain. Right? Because why am I getting up at 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning? It's got to be something. You either entertain me or lead me into encounter. And because you don't know how to do the encounter, we'll settle for entertainment. And it's not that the challenge here, like, it would be better if people had to choose between the two. It's not that. No one's saying no to encounter. I don't want to go to David's tent. I want to go to Moses' tent. Nobody's saying that. They don't even know there's a David's tent. All they know is, I bring my sheep, I bring my thing, I bring my family. The priests stand in front. They're the mediator between us and God. and we do a thing, and then we go home, come back next week. They're not saying no to David. They don't know there's a David tent. And the reason they don't know there's a David's tent is because we're not modeling it, right? Tom last night was talking about this cloud that came into the room. If that was happening in your local churches every week, like he said, he hasn't experienced it since. But if that was happening every single week, wouldn't the paradigm of worship be different? What is success? I guess that's the crux of this. What is success? Is it putting on, like everyone has been saying today and yesterday, is it putting on a great presentation? I know all of us, oh, no, it's not. But when you go to your debrief afterwards, what's the question, right? Oh, so what do we debrief? Oh, how did it go today? Well, we missed that verse and kind of screwed up that ending there. And dude, like, what were you playing, man? Like you missed the click. It's all those kind of comments. And that's normal. Hey, like, we're all there. Like, no shame. But like, imagine the question was, Father, what did you think? Right? And to an extent, congregation, when you go out to them, are they walking out saying, wow, worship was good today? Or are they walking out saying, wow, we encountered the Lord today? To the extent where even unbelievers will say, surely God is amongst them. Right? And I want to present that vision of corporate encounter as success. That we redefine success for ourselves. Corporate encounter. That doesn't mean that you have to have a white cloud fill the room every single week, but why not? I'm not saying I even know how to do that, but why aren't we asking the question? Why aren't we knocking on that door? Why aren't we trying to explore? Oh, but there's giants in the land. There be dragons over there. We don't know how to get there. This promised land sounds nice, but is there something over there? What if there is more? And I think what Lamar is saying is like, there is more. And I don't know where I'm at with time because that was going before I started. Can someone give me a signal? Yeah. So what I want to put before you is that corporate encounter, defined as when everyone in the room recognizes and responds to the presence of the Lord. And we pin that as success. And that will look different from church to church, from denomination to denomination. So don't feel like, oh, if there's no white cloud, we failed. But just that sense of we, not I. Individual encounters, people come to the altar, that's awesome. But imagine a corporate body, all of us together, responding to the presence of the Lord and say, we met him. And that even the unbelievers amongst us say, surely God is amongst them. Can we lead that? And I know right now it's like, that's our heart's desire. We have just no clue how to do it. That's awesome, though. All through Scripture, there's so many people who had great visions of what God wanted to do and no clue how to do it. Let's at least have that. Because if we don't have that, we're just going to default to what we do know how to do. And what song can you rehearse that's going to get somebody out of a wheelchair? So I'm going to leave it at that you would sense and see corporate encounter as a new vision, not just good music, not just a good song, not just well executed, but corporate encounter. God in the midst of us, wherever two or more are gathered, there I am. This is a promise. Every time we gather, we can expect an encounter because he promised it. And I know what you're thinking. Well, God has to initiate it. It's like, no, he doesn't. The woman with the issue of blood, she reached out and touched Jesus. Jesus had to stop and go, what happened? we can initiate encounter. Right? Just a moment, just like, Lord, you are here right next to me. I'm going to close it there. Otherwise, we're going to go somewhere. Anyways, thank you very, very much.